welcome to this episode of the FCBD podcast. This episode is From Concept to Stage, the Art of Solo Creation. I'm really happy that you have joined us here. We haven't looked at solos in a while here on FCBDU. And of course, solos are one of those things that can be a little bit scary. And if you're like me, you've joined Fat Chance Belly Dance Style because you like dancing with other people. So the thought of solo seems a little bit almost contradictory for a lot of us, but solos are really important, especially for those of us that maybe don't have people to dance with, or maybe we have a really long performance set and we want to incorporate some variety, or just simply challenge ourselves to tune in to a different piece of music that might not work with a standard formation or a standard FCBD style performance. So I am joined today by an absolutely amazing dancer and very accomplished, not only dancer, but a very accomplished classical musician and composer. I'm really happy to welcome Devi Mamak today, and she has a little guest here. I first met Devi, I think, back in, oh gosh, was it 2011 maybe or something? We were filming Volume 9. Yeah, and we had devotion
What?
shows. It's been a while.
Oh, wow. Do you remember how hot it was when
It
we did that?
was so hot. Everything was just sticking to our faces, and we were just like, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible." And from coming from Australia for you, and then coming from the south of the United States for me, we were like, we came to California, Northern California, to cool off a little bit.
It was
Oh, it
worth
was so hot.
it. It was worth it.
Yes, it was so worth it. Devi, I have watched many of your performances, many of your solos that I could find online or have watched over the years, and I have just been so in awe of all of your performances and all of your solos. The creativity that you put into, well, you can see it in your creations of steps and variations and dialects, and the way that you stick true to FCBD style when you do that is just, it's just really exciting. So to have you as a part of FCBDU and specifically going through the art of solos and helping us understand how to create them, how to tune into the music, and actually walking us through all the concepts that you have shared in this course that you've got coming up, and actually putting those together in a choreography really is a brilliant way to help people feel more confident and stage ready for a solo, because they could just take that and perform it, or they could take that concept and maybe change a few things that they want to add in and perform that. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing this with us.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for having me and for that wonderful introduction. I'm honored to be here and having a little chat with you and everyone else. Anyone else wanting to join us? I think what you said really. The very first thing that you said was how it can be quite scary, and my intention was never really to do solos initially. It was like you said, perhaps we had a really long set, and so we might slot in like a little 2 minute solo, or maybe the piece was really long and we might have like a couple of people come in for a little solo and then duets and trios or whatever. But I really started doing more solos when I started traveling, and I was, back in the day when not as many people knew about FCBD style, so I had no one to dance with. So I was kind of forced to do more solos, and that's how it kind of all came about, really.
Yeah. And so when you kind of like forced to do a solo, that's what happened to me for my first solo. I was what I say voluntold. I was voluntold I was going to be doing a solo because we had these longer performances, maybe 20 to 30-minute slots at different festivals. And usually Mega did the solo. No problem. Insert Mega solo here. And then you continue. And then she started traveling to teach tribal pura, and then later on general skills and teacher training. And then it was kind of like whoever wasn't, I think what happened was I didn't show up to the rehearsal one day when they were planning it out, and they were like, and that's Deanna's gonna do this this solo.
Right.
So yeah,
And
so
you
my
did
first
do
solo
it?
was I
You
did
did.
it.
Yeah. And how
But I
was
felt
it?
like I had to choreograph the whole thing because I was so out of my element that I thought I was just gonna stand there with my eyes open and be stuck, like a baby dancer all over again.
Right. And that's not a bad way to start either. I think, if you're feeling nervous about it, sure. What it does if you're doing a choreography, it really makes you understand all the little nuances in the music that you want to catch in a solo. And eventually if you did that I don't know if you did that performance a couple of times, but if you did, then you'd start to change it to go, oh, I know the music now. Actually, I feel like doing a turn here instead, or whatever, and you would start to change it and improvise around it. But having a structure is a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
I love I love what you just said about, kind of like the nuances of the music and being able to start familiarizing yourself with them. I guess the first time you're doing a solo to a piece of music, for many of us, we're nervous first, and it'll take a few times before we
Right.
feel in tune with the music.
Absolutely. You're just like, I just want to stay on the beat and not fall down and, have my costume stay in place, and that's good enough. So absolutely, as you get more comfortable, then you can branch out, start to improvise and change things up a little bit. But yeah, you don't have to make it super hard for yourself straight off the bat. So and it doesn't have to even be a full choreography. It could just be like, oh, that little section in the middle is kind of tricky. So I'm just going to really structure that, and the end and the beginning, I got that. I can do whatever I feel like at the time. So I feel like there doesn't have to be any set rules because it's a solo, right? There's going to be no mistakes.
Yes, I love that. Can you repeat it?
There's going to be no mistakes. In fact, I don't like to. I mean, I say the same thing with my piano students all the time. There are no mistakes. It's just an opportunity to maybe create something new and cool.
Mm,
Hmm.
I love it. Yeah, nobody's gonna know but you, right? So if you do a funky little turn there, all of a sudden you've created your own new thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, I've seen solos both in person and, online before, where they've taken, classic FCBD style steps, and it's like, oh, I would never have thought to put a little turn in there, but in a solo, it makes perfect sense. So you've got a little bit more give and play. So yeah, just have fun with it if you can,
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
goal. That's the goal. Have fun.
I love it. That's the goal. Have fun.
Hmm.
So when you're designing a solo piece, so let's talk. You've mentioned a couple little things. So I kind of want to come back to when you're designing a solo piece. Let's say you're on the road and you've got this new event that you're going to be at, and they've asked you to do a solo. Where do you find inspiration for what you're gonna do? Is it specifically music first? Is it costuming first? Is it like how do you even start?
For me, it's the music. And that's, I'll be honest, is a constant stress for me because if I don't have a new piece of music, I'm like, I gotta find a new piece of music. So yeah, I mean, I think there's been a couple of times where it might be an idea. Oh, I really want to do a dance, whether it's choreographed or improvised around this idea. But usually it's the music. I don't have any ideas most of the time until I hear the music, and then the ideas come.
Ooh, then the ideas come. Well, the solo that you're doing in your new course, um, is really it's sorry, you created it and it's your band and you guys wrote it. So it's kind of like you got to create whatever it was that you want what you wanted.
Well, yes, yes and no. Actually, that particular track, it's a truck, right? That's the one I used. I think that's
Yeah,
the.
it's the, Medusa.
Oh, it's Medusa Medley.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one we did create, and it was really just intended to just be for a drill kind of idea with the online videos that I create. So I just wanted it super super simple, not too fancy, just so it's got the basic rhythms there, and it turned out pretty well actually. So that was created between myself and an Egyptian percussionist, Ali Higson, who was actually the very first belly dancer I ever saw. She used to be a belly dancer. And I remember going to see her and thinking, I saw her, I think I was in my early 20s at in a restaurant in Sydney, and I was like, no way in hell I'd ever do that. And years later, and we're good friends now. And so that piece of music was created between me and her and my son, who is a jazz drummer. So he also plays on the track. So yeah, it was fun. And then yeah, the choreography that I did, and I put it together as a choreography to add some newer variations on the steps, and to just show you how I would do an FCBD style solo as opposed to a group piece. So like Carolina always says that she likes to see the whole evolution of the steps. So you'd see what's the A SWAT called now?
Yeah,
Always get the
the run swat.
the which?
Now we call it the run swat, the rhythmic undulation shimmy with arms and turn.
Right, I like that.
Yeah.
So, Caroline always says that she likes to see the original, then with the arms, and then with the turn, and then with the fade, and then circling up. And that makes perfect sense in a group situation. But in a solo situation, that just tends to get a little boring, right?
Mm.
So I like to go through the family of movements a lot quicker than I would in a group situation, just to keep things fun and interesting and fast paced.
Yeah. Well, I love that you mentioned that. So last month on FCBDU, we focused on the hip twist, but specifically the build up. So like we had the hip twist, and then we had the half turn, and then we did the flourish, and then we did a fade, and then we did a circle, so that you could see the hip twist and all of its variations, and how it evolved, and how it grew from the base step. And we talked a little bit about the buildup of a step, and being able to showcase it. And one of the blogs that I wrote was a reminder that when you're dancing in a group, it's not a competition about how many steps can I pull out and how fast can I. You're not trying to trick up the people that you're dancing with. It's like you just said,
Exactly.
like, the buildup works really, really well, and the audience has a lot to take in, so they're just like watching everybody do this buildup together.
Yeah.
And the reason we wanted to have the solos like the following month is that contrast of, okay, now we're going to break these rules. We're going to break this concept up.
Yeah, I love what you said about, not wanting to trip your fellow dancers up, when you don't have to keep like next, next, next. It doesn't have to be like that. I remember like back in the day when we started and we did do a lot of choreography as we were learning all the steps. And it was with that the Arabic family that we did a whole 4.5 minute tune just with that family.
That makes me
We
so
didn't we
happy.
didn't we didn't change, we didn't go to swivel step or pivot bump or anything like that. It was just that, and it was an awesome dance actually. And because there was a lot of us, we did formations and we moved around, and that kept it interesting. Yeah, but we just stayed with the one family because we just like we need to get all the moves in this family, and we put them in this little choreo. And I think from that, like, we did really become comfortable to then improvise. Exactly, going back to what we said in the beginning of the podcast, it's okay when you're starting off to choreograph it, but that gave us I think the courage to go, okay, we know all the steps now. We've drilled them and drilled them and drilled them. And then from there, then I think it was not long after that we started to do a lot more improv and stuff like that.
Nice.
It was like when Volume 9 came out. I mean, Volume 9 is huge.
Yes.
I had no idea when we were filming it how, like, two volumes, there's so many steps on it. And I remember, getting my DVD in the mail and going, oh my goodness, there's so much. And I think I did like four choreographies because I knew that if I tried to put them in improv because they weren't in my muscle memory, I was just gonna, oh no, I forgot this one, I forgot this one, I forgot this one. And so I did 4 choreographies. I think I did too slow, too fast, because there was so much material on that volume that I couldn't fit them all in one tune. So I did that and drilled it and drilled it and drilled it and drilled it. And then I was able to then start putting them into, um, the improv because they were then in my muscle memory.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing is, like, practice the heck out of it. There was so much on volume 9 to
Yeah.
practice that it's and
So
we
much.
didn't know each other's steps until we showed up. And so we
No.
were, like, learning them as we're watching the filming of them. We were like, "Now what did she do in that step?" You know?
And there were some that I got no problem straight away. Some I didn't, but some that I got straight away. But that was not the issue. It was then remembering to remember to put them in when I was doing the improv, because it just wasn't part of my vocabulary. So I think choreography has its place in certain times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love your volume 9 steps, and especially for solos too. I tend to use some steps in solos that I just forget about for whatever reason when I'm dancing in a group. The
Mm-hmm.
push forward and back, I don't know why I never do that one, but in a solo, it's coming out. And I guess maybe because of the different zills or I don't know, but it just
Right.
always comes out in a solo.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, see, for me, I usually bring that one out in a group. So there you go. It's
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it? All different
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that little pause makes me feel sassy when I'm doing it, like, and it just works out. I don't know, it works its way into a solo.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, can you share a little bit about? I don't want to give stuff away from your class, but can you share a little bit about? Okay, I've got this piece of music. Now, what do I do when I'm going to craft my set? Do you listen to the music 500 times and just dance to it and see what happens, or
That's one way that works really well, and you can do that. I I find that that takes a little bit longer. What I like to do is I like to map out the music and I go through it. First of all, I want to know what time signature I'm in. Most of the time, I guess we're going to be in 2/4 or 8. But I like to count how many bars I've got, and I like to look at the different sections. Hopefully, you've chosen a piece of music. I think you need to choose a piece of music for a solo that has, light and shade. It gets faster, it gets slower. Maybe there's a melody as well, maybe not. It depends. And I'll name the different sections, like, I don't know, the flowy section or the drum section or whatever, comes to mind. And then I might jot down what steps I think might go in those sections, just as ideas. Doesn't mean they will definitely stay there, and then I'll try it out. I just do it that way because I think it saves time.
mm,
Certainly, I can put on the music and just dance it over and over and over. But it just saves time if I've got a little bit of a structure, a bit of a map of the music and what it's doing. And before, let's say, towards the end of the one of the sections, it's like, okay, I know I've only got 8 bars of this section, so I need to wrap it up. So if I've chosen a long combo, I want to make sure that I don't choose another one. I'm going to wrap it
mm.
up, and then, okay, now it's the flowy section, so I'm going to go into slow or whatever. So that's how I like to do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love the mapping. So, as meticulous as I am about like planning and organizing and everything, when I'm doing a solo, I find that if I just dance to it 500 times, it's like, okay, what do I tend to do in these different sections? Because it's like the feeling of, like you said, the flowiness, or maybe it feels really earthy, or it feels really bouncy or something. Then it makes me like less nervous to dance it, because then I'm like, oh, well, this is already kind of in my muscle memory, but it does take so long to do it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's another way of, well, you're not choreographing it, but just having a basic idea. If you've chosen a piece of music that has a variety of different feels and maybe rhythms or whatever, you have a basic idea of, oh, well, okay, the pivot family feels really good, or whatever, it just gives you a little bit of a structure, so it doesn't have to be the individual moves, but it's like, I'm going to go to this family now.
Going to this family. That reminds me that we also last month talked about the flow chart. So this has been really great for solos because again, I'll forget about steps and I'll go, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about, XYZ step.
Yeah, yeah, I do that all the time. There's so much in the vocabulary now, and so sometimes I will look at the steps or all the different combos, and I'll go, "Oh, I haven't added that one for a while. I really want to add that." So in my notes, I'll just put it at, remember this one, just so I can, try and put it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you've done a lot of solos in your time, and I imagine you've done a lot of different types of music, different songs. I know probably different music that we wouldn't necessarily even use in Fat Chance Belly Dance Style, just because you're a musician and you're a composer and you like different, like 6/8 and other types of music that we don't necessarily dance to all the time. But is there a solo that you've created that you feel is like really memorable? Like I did this solo and I still think about how great it was.
Yeah, look, I don't think that very often, to be honest. Like most artists, we tend to beat ourselves up a little bit more. I'm no different. But there are a few that I really really like, and I could talk about a number of them. But seeing we're talking about drum solos, there is one that I did, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know why I remember the year, but I'm pretty sure it was around 2010. So a while ago now, and it was to Osama by Rocky and the Cavemen, and it was a drum solo. And I really loved it because there are so many different parts in the music. So there were moments where I could actually stop, doing fast drum soloing and do some slow stuff. And I remember I did belly rolls in there at one point, and then the music kind of built up again, and I kind of used the whole stage and did a lot of turns and spins and everything. So it almost had like melodies within the different drum rhythms, and so that made it really interesting um, to listen to. And then I could become, the physical manifestation of what you were hearing as much as I was able to at that time. And so I think that was, and it was not like, some drum solos are really short. This was like a nice chunk of time. It wasn't too long. Wasn't too short. I think it was maybe around 4 minutes. And there was some little intricate bits in there too. So it wasn't just your straight, um, very obvious drumming to four. So it had that as well, but it just had a lot of different things happening in it. So it made it interesting, I think.
Very cool. Did you choreograph that one or did you improv or was it a mix? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember it because the music was so intricate. I did choreograph it. And then I did perform it a number of times. So I did end up changing it up after a while. It's like, I feel like doing this now, right? So, but yeah, I did choreograph it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds so great. Yeah, it's just that comfort. Like I'm very uncomfortable choreographing a group performance because I feel it puts so much pressure on me. But it feels like the opposite with a solo. I feel like the choreography takes the pressure off of me. I don't know why, because I think I'd just be in my head about how am I going to keep them entertained now?
Yeah, yeah. And I think how you keep them entertained is yeah, engage more. I think we're so used to engaging uh with our fellow dancers. And that, I think that's the scary thing for us as FCBD style dancers. We're used to, turning around and seeing our fellow dancers and smiling, and we don't have that. We're alone. And I think that's partially the scary thing. But you have your audience. You might have, maybe you have musicians on stage with you. It depends. So don't forget that they're there with you as well. So Um, and I think, if it's like anything, whether you're doing a group or whether you're doing a solo, if you make a mistake, hate that word, but if you make a mistake, just smile, because if you look terrified, the last thing you want is for your audience to say, "Oh, poor thing, she looks terrified." You
Right.
want you just laugh it off and just keep going, don't you?
Oh my gosh, your kitty cat is amazing. I wish so those of you that are listening to us, rather than watching the YouTube, just pop over to YouTube for a moment and get some cute little kitty snuggles via YouTube.
This is
And
question.
speaking of live and YouTube, I just want to say hi real fast to Maria and Kelly. I know that you guys are watching us out there. I saw a little chat earlier. So if you have any questions specifically about solos and you're joining us live, feel free to put those in the comments. If it's something that she's going to cover during her class, we may be like, "Oh, you have to wait and take her class," but we may talk about it here.
Yeah. So
And
can I see them on my end, or can you only see them, Deanna?
I think you'd have to have like a separate thing so you could pull YouTube up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you'll
Maria
tell me.
says, hello. She says they're always at least a trio. And then Kelly says, hi, Devi and Deanna.
Hi, guys.
Yeah. How
Trios. I
nice.
love trios.
Hmm?
I love trios. Trios are great.
Trios are great. Yeah, I'm definitely more of a group dancer than a soloist. But as you said, like sometimes there's just those times that it's needed. And you mentioned
Yeah.
something earlier about like the size of the stage or the venue, and I was curious as to if there are certain types of venues that you feel more comfortable with a solo in. So, for instance, I don't know if you have done any restaurant gigs or do you like stage performances, solos better? Can we talk a little bit about like the different types of venue and the solo?
Sure. Yeah. No, I actually started like a long, long time ago, way before I did FCBD style. My teacher was more Oriental folkloric. We did a lot of Gwazi style, and that's originally why we were called Gwazi Caravan. It was in honor of my first teacher. Um, we've changed our name since then. But and she put me out to restaurants when I'd been learning for 6 months. So
Wow,
I used to dance at a restaurant almost every Friday night there for a while. And I loved it. And the guy used to like peel. He'd come out with wads of money and peel off $20 each for us. I was like, oh,
nice.
and I still, but I did love it. I learned a lot through the experience. And what do I definitely prefer being up and close and personal for sure. Just recently, we had a little gig with my whole band and my dancers, at a local event, and something happened. Our sitar player was sick, so it changed the set all around. So I ended up having to do just the way the flow of the set. I wasn't prepared, but I ended up doing an improvised solo, drum solo, actually. And I hadn't planned on it at all. So, what I love about working at a restaurant is I can waffle around. I can just go up to a table and do a couple of moves and then wander over here and do it just feels low pressure to me. And I can see the audience's faces really clearly because I'm at their level. And so I can engage with them and smile. And if you smile at someone, they're so excited that you're smiling at them. They don't even notice if you're doing something that's a little bit strange or whatever. Um, and I think on a big stage, a solo just feels like a little bit scary, especially for me. If, the lights are blinding, I hate it when the lights are blinding and I
Mm,
can't see,
yeah.
some stages are like that. If it's not terribly blinding, I don't mind, I can do that, but I think I do prefer being down with the audience for me personally. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that. I can see that. I can definitely see that because that interaction that you get with since you don't have the group dance, you don't have the fellow dancers to interact with and that like smiling and re-energizing you feeling, then yeah, being able to do that with the people at the restaurant seems like it would be.
Yeah, and I think for me also, apart from the fact if you've got the blinding lights in a theater situation, it's very disorientating when you're spinning. It's like, where is the front now? I hate that feeling. But also because you can't see their faces, not that they are, but it has a feeling like you're just being watched and you're being judged, even though no one's really judging you. It has that. Then there's you're separate, you
Mm,
know.
hmm.
Um, and it feels like in a not it doesn't necessarily have to be a restaurant, but just a more intimate setting. Um, it feels like they're a part of that solo a little more for me, and that's why I think I prefer it. Because at the end of the day, I'm like you. I do like dancing with others. That's why one of the reasons why I love the style so much.
Yeah. So in a way,
Mm.
you're dancing with your audience at these smaller, more intimate venues.
Exactly, exactly. And it's not, I mean, I'm not one of those dancers that tries to get people up to dance. It's not like that. I'm still performing, I'm still putting on a show, but I'm getting that emotional feedback from them by engaging with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that level of connection.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what makes it more fun. For me anyway.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for people, I know we had a couple people kind of chime in and some different events that we've had over the last few months, and they were working on creating their own solos. And so another reason I'm really excited about this, the whole month of April's solo events that we're doing, focusing on your new workshop. What kind of advice would you have for these newer, either newer dancers or newer to solos, basically in general? Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
Know your music. Um, Go through the movements a lot quicker than you normally would, like we were saying before. Don't do anything that you're not comfortable with, which that goes without saying, right? Though, so if you're not quite there with the spins, don't put them in, right? Um, and engage, yeah, like we were saying, engage with the audience more and or the musicians that are on the stage with you, and move around a lot more. So, for instance, I will still do turning the wheel movements. I just do
Mhm.
them by myself. I'll use up the whole stage and turn around and do big circles. And then instead of my coming back to center, which is what we would normally do, I might just, let's say if it's a stage scenario, I might go over to the corner stage and hopefully I can see the person in the front row or the second front row in the corner, engage with them because they're too far over, and then I might go over the other side. You don't have to stay in the center.
Yeah, that's huge because when we're trying to stay in formation, we don't travel very often in our style of dance. And when we travel forward and back, right, or with a fade or in a circle, but yeah, traveling to the left and to the right, or traveling to the back left corner or something like that is can feel quite different. So I love
Yeah.
that piece of advice.
And it depends, I think, on the venue, on the stage, how big it is. Like I was on a stage recently where it was so big. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna look like I'm chasing my tail if I use this whole stage. So I just kind of when I'm cutting the corners and this is my stage. And so I used that because it just would have been too crazy. So it depends. And also having said that, let's say you've got a larger set and you have a troupe and they're flagging you in a solo. Depends on how large the troupe is too. So if they're in the chorus line, and you might have, I don't know, 8, 10 people, it might look a little strange to go out of that chorus line and over the corner if they're not quite using the whole stage. So it just depends. I think in a chorus line situation, you would be a little bit more centered. You still got definitely room to move, absolutely, but I think less than if you didn't have them there. And again, it depends on the venue and so many other things. And some venues, the stage might have multiple fronts too. So it just depends. Just you have to get to your venue and see what makes sense, and think about where people are sitting and which way they're facing, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then the lighting, like there might be the big stage, but maybe this section of the stage has the best lighting. So in that situation,
Exactly. Yeah.
don't travel in that area because nobody can see you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, the last stage I performed at, there was definitely a black zone where normally it would be somewhere where I would want to come right up to the front, but it wasn't possible because I would have just been in the dark. So yeah, all those things play a part in that. So yeah, know the stage, know where the audience is going to sit, what type of venue it is, what type of event it is, where the lighting is. There's a few things to consider. And it sounds like a lot, but the more you do it, you just kind of, it's like, okay, I've got to look at the stage, got to look at the lighting, and you just do it. It only takes a few minutes, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Mm.
I love what you said earlier. The way that you said it was kind of, just gonna reword it. Um, like don't limit yourself on quote unquote group variations or formations just because you're a solo. Like still do the circle up. You're just circling on your own, or maybe instead of a circle you travel it to the right or you travel it to the left. Um,
Exactly.
try a fade, but you're not fading, but moving back and moving forward.
Yep, 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 exactly. That's exactly what I do. Sometimes I might take my swivel step diagonally, like it, yeah, just you can still do all the moves. You just don't have other people to dance it with. So how do you make that interesting?
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and you said earlier how you guys did in a group, it was a group setting where you did like everything in the rhythmic undulation family. I think that would be a great way to practice is say like dance this whole song with just one family and see all the ways that you can travel or that you can change it up or something if you're only by yourself.
That would be a great idea, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would get you to remember all the things that you could add and put in there. Sure, you might not do that as a solo, but put it on a couple of times, then try all the different ways you can do a swivel step, and just think, yeah, which direction can I take it in? Could I do a 3/4 turn, which you can with a swivel step? Can I do, a 3/4 turn instead of a half turn, or could I do 2 turns with it? So you're not limited to. I think there was one time I did the rhythmic undulation with arms and a turn, and just whatever the music did, I ended up, I think, at the end putting in 2 turns or 3 turns, or you could play around with that a little bit as well, which you wouldn't do in a group setting.
Yeah. Right. Well, and even the dance angle, right? So normally in our performance, we would have a performance angle,
Hmm.
but changing your angle or taking out your angle or flattening something out, depending on how the audience is going to see it.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely play around with the angle for sure. Yeah, move around a little bit more.
And then one of the questions that I had that kind of goes with this is, and you mentioned something earlier about it, but do you do you ever approach a solo as like a storytelling or trying to convey an emotion, or is it really just like whatever the music is telling you and then the music kind of inspires your costuming? Like is there a theme usually around a solo that you create, or has there
Not
been
always,
one?
not always, but most of the time when I create something and I have no idea why this is, I have an old movie running through my head. So
Really?
yeah, most of the time. So for instance, the Medusa, that came out of the old 1980s film by Ray Harryhausen, Clash of the Titans. So in my mind, when I was thinking about that step, I was thinking about that movie. It's the same thing with what's the crazy Carmen called now? The crazy,
Oh,
sorry,
the balancing step with a turn.
Bal- balancing step with a turn. I had an old Clint Eastwood movie going through my head for that one.
Yeah. And for people
So
people that don't, just like a side step, people that haven't taken your class on the balancing step with turn, aka the loco camel, don't realize when you said crazy Carmen where that came from. So I was like, oh, I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, you did. Yeah, so not always, but a lot of the time that's what happens. Sometimes it's other things too. Like it could be I'll hear the music and I'll be inspired by nature or a piece of artwork. Or one time, I did this whole a whole dance. I had a friend. He used to make our costumes, and he lived in an old shed, a massive shed, and he would collect, throw out things, rubbish and garbage and things like that. But he turned them into works of art. And his bedroom, we did one of our photo shoots actually. His bedroom looked like it was a palace that he'd made out of junk and garbage and stuff like that. That whole place is being pulled down now. But you could never turn the light on really clearly because you'd kind of see that it was junk and garbage and stuff. But so one time I did a whole dance, and his what he'd created was the inspiration. So it just depends. And other times, more so with drum solos, actually not as much unless there's a melody line. So I think for me, maybe there needs to be some sort of a melody line attached to the story. So with a drum solo, it tends to be more like I'm just really listening to where the beats are and trying to portray that in the steps that I choose. And sometimes that's how steps get created because I think, oh, I'm going to do this step here, and it doesn't quite fit. So how do I make that fit? So I find a way to make it fit, and it's like, oh, it doesn't look like that step anymore. So that's actually all my creations actually start like that. Actually, yeah,
Just
every
playing
single one.
and seeing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, I'm gonna have to make that. I'm gonna have to squeeze it in there somehow, and then something else comes out of that. It's like, oh, it's kind of like this step and like that step, and I've just kind of mushed them together somehow. So that's how it usually happens. But there's no one way, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's been like a lot of shows that are themed, and then people show up with like a whole theme to their solo. But I what you said completely makes sense to me because a drum solo, it's about the drum, right? It's about the all the fills that they can do and the pops and the everything. And the melody instruments tend to feel like they're taking you on this journey of this,
Mm,
where it crescendos or where it softens. And so that makes complete sense that if it's like a drum solo, it feels more about like the movements and the beats, but a melody gives you an opportunity if you're really wanting to tell a story.
yeah, absolutely. But one thing I do like to do, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes with the drum solo too, especially if I do have a story, is often to have like a little theme or a motif that I keep coming back to. It could be a shape, or sometimes it's a movement, or maybe it's spins or whatever. But I think if you're into the storytelling thing, I feel like that helps.
Hmm.
Yeah, to just keep coming back to that, and it makes it easier, I think. um, just like in music, when I'm doing um, a lot of improvising with my students, a lot of students will just like want to make it interesting, so they'll play a whole bunch of notes, and it will sound like a hot mess. And then I'll say, well, one note. Just play one note over and over and over again in as many different ways as you can. And in that, it's actually what how they teach in classical. We're getting off topic here, but it's a really interesting story. So in classical Indian music, I know this because I work with a sitar a lot. When your teacher gives you a raga to learn, so you've got your 7 or 8 notes or 5 notes depending on the raga. You're only allowed to play one note for a period of time until the teacher says. And each raga will have a feeling. So the feeling that raga could be about early morning, for instance. And so the only thing you got to play with, if you only have one note, you have to make that one note sound like early morning, and then you've got rhythm. That's all. If you've only got one note,
Wow.
so it makes your rhythm. It really works on your rhythm technique, which is really, rhythm's always the boss. And then of course your feeling. So how do I make this one note sound like early morning? And then when your teacher says, okay, now you can move on, I think then you go to 3 notes. I don't know why it's not 2, but I think it's 3 next. And then you get to play with that again with the rhythm and the feeling of early morning. And then you move on, and then you go up the scale, and then eventually you can you're allowed to play the whole thing. Um, but I love that for even our purposes, what we're talking here, you know, play around with just one thing for a while until that feels really comfortable, and then see how you can change that one thing.
That's beautiful.
Hmm.
So when you said like early morning, would it be the quality of, I'm going to completely butcher this, but like the quality of the plucking or the strumming to give
Right,
it that kind of like
right.
same tone, but it's a different feeling.
Exactly. And I remember when Colin, my dear friend and the sitar player, said to me, you've got to, this is the raga, and actually it's not Bhairav, is the one that's on my album. That's the raga that's about early morning. And I was like, what the hell does that sound like? He said, you'll know. And we'd rehearsed for months and months, and then one day he said, you've got the feeling. And I feel like I got the feeling on my instrument, which is a Western instrument. But again, to go to what you were saying, it's the amount of pressure that I put on the keys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a technique that I say to my students. I call it the kitty technique. So the piano is a percussion instrument, so you hit it. But the kitty, when a cat sits on you and it does this.
Oh yeah, we call them biscuits, making biscuits,
Oh, right,
like
okay.
kneading the dough or something.
Right. So to get that, for me on my instrument, to get that early morning feel, I have to use the kitty technique and a little bit more like of a press into the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the quality of whatever instrument you're playing, and I guess we can apply that to our dance. So if you have a piece of music that you love, and you're like, oh, this reminds me of blah, whatever. It's like, how am I going to portray that? Yeah, sure, you're going to do the moves that go well with the piece of music, but then what intention do you have? How much resistance and release do you use in each of those moves to portray that feeling that you're trying to create?
Ah, Debbie, this is like this is the area that just makes me, I have chills. This is the area of discussion of dance and music that make me just really come home to like the mindfulness factor of dancing and connecting, because it's the same. And I've taught this in like my alignment course that I teach and in a few different workshops, but the quality of your movement isn't
Mm,
going to be the same for every song that you dance to. So yes, the
exactly.
technique is the same, of course, but
Exactly.
your Arabic, your rhythmic undulation in this song is going to feel different and have a different energy than it would in this other song, as it should, like as dancers. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we just think about like doing one movement the same way every time.
Mm.
It's not that clear. It's not that clear cut. Just like I guess you wouldn't play the same piece of music the same way every time. It's going to depend on the emotion that you have behind it that day, or the venue that you're in, or where your energy is that day, or
Yeah,
how you want
that's
your audience to feel.
exactly. It's all those things, and I think the word mindful is good here. What you were saying, and that's not just because I'm all about that these days at the moment. Um, Everything, which is really hard because your mind wanders so quickly, and it's not just about being mindful when you're performing. I mean, you want to do that too, but you need to be mindful when you're practicing because when you're practicing, you're at home, you're relaxed, and so that's when you tend to, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? I was like, yeah, I'm just doing this step again. I've done it 100 times. I just want to run through it so I, remember it on the day. But yeah, instead, maybe thinking about the quality of those steps because under pressure, when you need to be mindful, and most of the time we all are, you're not going to be able to call on that if you're not practicing it every day. If you're
Yeah.
not looking at what is my body doing, what is my breath doing, what am I doing, what is every little muscle in my body doing. If you practice that while you're practicing, then you're going to be able to do that when you're performing. But if you're nervous, then everything kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said a word too that I'm like, yes, everybody needs to practice your breath. So
Hmm.
I'm sure as a musician, you teach your music students all the time about the breath and the not having so much tension in their bodies as they're playing. And it's the same with dance. And so coming back to your
Yeah,
breath.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think most of the time, yeah, I have a few students actually that breathe strangely, and I do bring it to them. But most of the time, kids especially, because they don't, I teach mainly kids. The adults that I teach, they do weird things with their breath because they expect to be perfect, and but yeah, little kids usually, most of the time, they're just there for the experience, and their breathing's fine. But um, yeah, I think this is uh, most of the time the adults that are doing this dance form, and we beat ourselves up a lot. And once we do that, yep, especially on stage, your breath can become shallow, you get nervous, you get anxious, all that kind of thing. So I'm pretty good with that now. I still sometimes get the weird feelings in my feet, where the energy just kind of leaves your feet. I hate that.
Yeah.
And it just comes and goes. I never know when it's going to happen. And so I'm always like just trying to push the energy back down. Come on, go back down. Go back down. And some days it still doesn't go down. That's okay. A lot of people say to me, because I do meditate every day, um, not great a lot of the time, but it's not about that. It's about the consistency and the journey of it. I feel like it's something I will always do for the rest of my life, like brushing my teeth. So when
Mhm.
I do find myself in stressful situations, I'll be able to come back and go, okay, what's my body doing? What's happening right now? Because I'm a sort of person under stressful situations, I'll tend to freeze up. And even in my early performances, I was doing all the steps. That's fine. I wasn't freezing on stage literally, but my mind had left the building. And then it'd end, and I'd go, "What just happened?" You know. And so if I'm able to be more present in that experience, sure, I might be. I'm not saying it's going to stop me from being nervous. I might still be nervous, but I can have the mind to know, hey, I'm nervous. Okay, I can feel that in my body. I'm just going to move through it. Just make sure that my breathing's a little bit slower, that my energy is coming down into my feet, and that I don't rush through anything. Like a lot of people, rush through things if they get a little bit nervous and be a little bit ahead of the beat. So just making sure that, I milk every movement and just try not to rush it, be present for the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. I love it so much. We have
Mm.
we have a few classes and I'll put them in the show notes. We have a few classes on FCBDU that can help with that as well, just for the people that are listening if they're like, "Where do I start?" So, we have of course emotional intelligence class that we released back in February with Danny from Hanover, Germany. And then we also have in our yoga offerings and our dance conditioning, we have a lot of grounding exercises and grounding techniques. There's even one specifically to work on the feet. So like if so that way you can kind of connect your feet a little bit more with the earth. And we have a lot of breathing exercises, breathing for like pre-performance breath work and everything. So along with Devi's solo workshops, if you find that you're really nervous or you find that what she's saying is like, oh my gosh, same, same, go out and see if some of those classes help you feel a little more grounded or feel a little more present. Or
Yeah.
if these terms like mindfulness are new to you, you can do a search on FCBDU as well. And we have classes that will support you kind of learning a little bit more about that.
Mhm.
So we do
Yeah.
have a question that came in on our YouTube channel. So hi Maria, she says a question.
Maria who?
How
What's Maria's
Maria
surname?
Iosef from Greece?
Hi, Maria.
She's in Athens. She says, "How long you keep dancing? Oh, how long do you keep dancing a specific solo? Meaning that some dancers dance a solo once and that's it, but others dance it for a long time. Uh, an example is her. She keeps dancing it until she says, "I keep dancing until I destroy it." So I think the question is like, how long do you use that
it
song? I guess.
it depends, like how much I loved it. I mean, sometimes it's just been once, and then other times it's been more. And there's been one track. It's not. Yeah, I have done it as solo. I've done it as a group. I've done it so many different ways. I might do it for a year or two, and then I'll put it to rest for 5 years, and then I'll pull it out again. I don't think there's any one way. Sometimes some of the other dancers in the troupe has gone, "Oh God, that dance again." I said, "How long have they done Swan Lake for?"
That's true. River dance.
Yeah, river dance. So yeah, so just like, if you like it, keep doing it. If you don't like it, don't do it anymore.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Mega has had a solo rock. I think it was "Hit the Bottles," that song from Susu Pampanine, "Hit the Bottles." She would do that solo all the time. It was
Yeah,
like, here's Mega's solo, but when I would hear the music, I would go, "Oh, here's Mega's solo," because I knew, like, I knew what she was doing, and so I liked to she did all the things that made her happy. So, of course, I wanted to watch the solo again. So,
right.
yeah, I think it's the same. I would be like, "Oh, I love Devi's solo when she dances it to this song," you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that doesn't mean to say that I'll do it exactly the same each time. Change it up. So, I mean, if it feels right, do it. If it doesn't, don't.
Best piece of life advice right there. If it feels right,
Hmm.
do it. If it doesn't, don't do it. So, speaking of what feels right, so Maria, I hope she says thank you, lots of hearts. So, I was gonna say, I hope that answered your question. And speaking of, if you like it, do it. If you don't do it. What else have you been up to as we start closing out our podcast? What all have
Uh,
you got going on?
yeah. I'm always up to something. Um, yeah. I've got a lot of music stuff happening. I'm teaching a lot. I just did a recording actually with a friend of mine who's Egyptian, and he wrote this beautiful piece, epic. It's so long. It's over 10 minutes long. This beautiful track, and he sings in it as well. And it's about being Egyptian and leaving your country. So it's very emotive. And he wanted some piano on it. It was very, very challenging because he didn't give me any chart or whatever. I just had to work out the whole thing by ear and work out a part for that, not being playing any Egyptian instruments in there. So I just finished that. So I've had a little bit of a. I'm really curious to hear the final product. So that'll be nice. Um, and so I've had a little bit of a break the last week or so. And apart from that, I don't have anything on with my band till later in the year. But I want to finish a tune that is based. I want to write a tune that's based around the semi rhythm. So
Mm.
I've got a hook. I just want to come up with a melody because I don't know. I'm all about semi rhythm at the moment. I'm just loving it. So, and I was talking to my Egyptian friend, and I said, traditionally, what rhythm would you shift to, for people that want to know? And apparently, usually, traditionally, they would shift to something in three, and then they'd go
Wow.
back. So that's kind of what I want to do. I am going to Hanover in Germany in June, and that is for the Global Fusion Festival. I'm really excited. I'm the special guest along with Zoe Jake, so that's really cool. And
Yeah.
then that those workshops will also be available for people online if they can't get to Hanover, Germany. So that'll be fun. And later in the year, I'm going to be at Sacred Circles again, which I love. And, I have, I'm not teaching a lot of stuff this year, but I'm just choosing the ones that I really, really want to do. And I'm doing my annual Blue Mountains local weekend that I do every year for people around my area. So that's always nice and chill. So I think that's about it. I think I'm probably going to forget something because I know I'm way busier than that, but they're off the top of my head.
I love that we were talking a little bit before the podcast, but you were just saying how you kind of are at this point in your life where you're like, I just want to do what I want to do. Like I'm not doing a whole lot of running around and like filling up all the time, but just like being a little more particular about what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm coming to see you, of
I
course.
know, I'm so excited. I wasn't going to say it. I'm
Yeah,
thrilled. So, yes, Debbie has a holiday and she's coming to spend a week with me here in Portland. We're going to have so much fun. I'm
yeah,
really
and we
looking
have
forward to it.
things, and for me, um, I don't know if other people are like this. I do learn from going to workshops and things like that, but I learn the most from online stuff like FCBDU because it takes me a while to get things. Like if I go to a workshop, I'm going to forget half of it. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
But the yeah, but the online stuff where you can go back and watch it. For me, that works for my style of learning. And the other way I learn a lot is through collaborations. I learn more from collaborations than I would at a workshop, like bouncing around ideas and playing with ideas with people that I love, that I like, and they're good at what they do.
Yeah. Oh, I
And it's
love
more
that.
it's
Yeah.
more
Well, I
fun.
mean, after this many years of, I think I was looking at or I know I was looking at your website earlier. I think you started doing FCBD style in 1999. So this is like 25 years of doing this style. So it makes
Yeah,
sense that you're just like at a different part where you're just like, I'm going to learn from other people that have, other thought processes, or maybe we collaborate and come up with like two brains come together. And we're like, oh my gosh, we could have never figured this out on our own, kind of a thing.
yeah, and just to hang out too. I think connection builds a community, and that's important.
I agree. I agree. That's been a big thing for me going forward is just creating a deeper sense of connection and being more. Where are my words? Being more intentional
Mhm.
about the time that I spend with people.
Yeah.
So that it's like really quality. So
Oh,
yeah. So I'm
sounds
looking forward.
like, yeah, we're gonna have fun, and I'm
We
looking forward
are.
All the cooking.
Yes, eating good food, kitty cat snuggles, drive to the coast, go to the mountain, just like experience all of Portland and hang out together. It's going to be great.
Sorry, I just lost you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Can you see me still?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see you. That's right. Of course, my mother decides to call now. Uh,
That's
okay.
how it works, right?
Yeah.
And
But anyway,
so,
you can see me.
yeah, I can see you. And so before we say bye, of course, I want to tell everybody about what's going on with your workshops coming out in April. But I would love for you to, I know you have a new album, you have a new DVD. So can you tell us a little bit about where we can catch up with all the things that you have recently released in the last couple of years?
Right, yes. So just before COVID, I thought I'm going to make a DVD, which ended up being a digital download. That's the correct terminology, I think. Um, all the variations that I created for FCBD style, but also some of the things that I love to fuse with that I'm well known for, specifically my flamenco fusion and some other Indian fusion and some modern fusion as well. And it ended up just being so huge. There's like, I think altogether like 98 combos and concepts and
My
variations.
gosh, wow.
Yeah,
Talk
it's
about some
really
time to learn all of those.
yeah. So I ended up putting them in two volumes. So volume two is just for FCBD style because I wanted to be really clear that you wouldn't necessarily mix those. So volume two is just for FCBD style, and volume three has the flamenco inspirations, the Indian inspirations, and the modern fusion inspirations. And then, of course, what happened with the music was initially I thought, oh yeah, I'll write it because I didn't realize there was going to be so many steps in there. I'll compose some of the music and I'll ask my son to drum. And then the music was so elaborate. My son said, "No, we need a saxophone player. We need a bass player." So that's how the band was actually born. I was just thinking it was going to be this little backing track just so you had a beat to dance to. And it ended up being a six-piece, you know, I don't know, jazz, whatever it is, world fusion, jazz, classical, I don't know, kind of thing that happened that got created. So you can buy, so if you buy volume two and or volume three, you can buy them either separately or you can buy them together. You will automatically get the music. If you just want the music, you can go to my piano website, which is just devimamak.com.au, or you can go through the Caravan Dance Company website. You go to the shop page and it'll have all the info about volume two, volume three, and my volume one, which is still just available on hard copy, and just a few other bits and pieces that I have there. So all my online workshops are still available that I did during COVID. You can still purchase those. There's a whole different, lots of topics that I did during that time. And I'm actually thinking about, because I have a piano student who's asked me to put together a beginner's FCBD style um, choreography, like a drill choreography, like going through
Mhm.
all the basic family of steps and putting it together as a drill, kind of like what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So, I think I've got to film it for her anyway. I thought that I might put it up there and then everyone can enjoy that if they want, the nitty gritty details of just the very basic steps and just somewhere to start on
Yeah.
on those moves.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I'll definitely link to all of those things in the show notes and all of the things that we put out on our website. Your
Mm,
music is, of course, your dancing and all of your teaching is fantastic, but I also want to reiterate how beautiful that album is. I listen
thank
to it often, and in your workshop that we have on FCBDU that's releasing, I link to where people can purchase the song because I know that in your class, of course, the song is there, but I really want to encourage people buy the music from the musicians. The whole album is amazing, so we've linked to it for that workshop.
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you're here on FCBDU and you're joining us live on the podcast, thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening to us later, thank you so much. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and of course, we're always here for comments and questions. But coming out this month, so this is April 2024, we're focusing on solos, and specifically, we're focusing on solos with Devi. So Debbie has a two-part workshop. The first part releases on Sunday, and she's going to tell you, and we did a workbook. Debbie created a document for us. We've got a workbook together for you to help you with your solos. Again, I love the way that Debbie teaches this because she gives you concepts of solos and then puts those concepts into practice with a choreography using song that she wrote. And it's really, really amazing. And I would love for everybody to take the course, share with us what you learned, how it's inspired you to do a solo, and maybe you even take her solo and perform it somewhere. We would love to see those videos of you doing that. Maybe we
And
can make a little compilation.
I got something to add there. What I would love to see as well is feel free to change what I've done. So, you could easily take out a section that I show you and add one of the moves that you would want to do there instead. So don't feel like it has to. This is just an idea to get you started. So what I really love for my students is to find their own creativity. So feel free to change it, mix it up, turn it inside out, whatever you want to do.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, especially because I know that in there you use a double back at some point. And I know some people are like, oh, the double back. So you were talking earlier about doing things that you're really comfortable with. So if you take the double back out, maybe add something in.
Yeah, whatever you like. So I'd be curious to see all the different ones that come out of this idea, changing it up. You might go, oh, I did the same move, but I turned it this way around, or whatever. Like I want to see all of that. So definitely let Deanna and I know like what you did with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here for it. I'm like, tag us. We want to we want to see, we want to cheer you on. We want to be excited. We're doing a
Exactly,
solo. So let us be there to send you that energy.
for sure. That sounds great.
Uh, well, Debbie, thank you so much for such a great time, and kisses to the kitty cat for me. Oh my goodness.
The
She's
sweetheart.
adorable. And I can't wait to see you in just a few months. I know it'll go by fast, so I'm excited for our time together. Hopefully the next few months go by quickly so we can hang out soon. And yeah, thank you so much for the work that you've put into this solo workshop, for sharing all your knowledge and your time and your talent in both dance and music and teaching. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah, and we will chat with you soon. So mwah. Thanks to everyone that's joining us now or later. This episode is brought to you by our members. So if you'd like to be a member of FCBDU for only $25 a month, you can get over 300 classes with Devi, with Carolina, with myself, with Liz, with Kelly, with Lori, tons of teachers from all over the world giving you all of the classes that you want right there in one place, fcbdu.com. So go check it
Great.
out.
Thank you, Deanna. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.